With the help of Hashem, we are learning Moed Katan Daf Yud. We are dedicating this class L'Refuah Shalema to Yocheved Bas Leah. We left off on Daf Yud, Mamish on the top of the Amid by the two dots, Hahedyet Teufel Kedarkoi. The Nekuda of the entire Daf Yud is going to be to clarify the rule that there are many activities in which we say that doing them Maase, Uman Alavav Menun, doing them in a skilled manner, or that activity being done by a professional will not be allowed. But a hedyet, an unskilled person, could do that activity, or even a skilled person has to do it in an unskilled manner. Now, that concept was introduced in the Mishnah when we were speaking about sewing, not planting, sewing, S-E-W, sewing. It goes without saying that you may not sew a garment to repair it if it's not needed for Cholamoid or for Yom Tov. But even when it's needed for the Yom Tov, it's called Soirech. There's a need for the festival. Yet, as the Mishnah gave that one example, who is allowed to sew? Only a hedyet. And if the Uman, if the skilled tailor, professional, is going to do that activity, he must do it in an unusual way. Now, we're going to have today many cases. And basically, the picture that we will get will be the following. And to quote the Nemuka Yosef, if we're speaking about any labor that's directly about food, or at least one step before food. Food means preparing food. Nowhere we can prepare the food in the most skilled manner that you could, no problem. Putting together an oven. But the kalim that are needed to make food, as we will see, could be done. But there comes a certain point, like, for example, trapping a bird. It's also food, but you have to trap it and you have to prepare it. And there comes a certain line where it's so many steps before you eating it that activity will not be allowed to be done in a professional manner, as we'll see. That will be a great synopsis regarding a lot that we will learn today. We're going to have like 8 statements of Rava, and in many of them, also very interesting, same activity, whether it will be permitted or prohibited will depend on one's kavana, on one's intention. And let's leave it at that. It's going to be an easy daf, but we're going to be learning many cases. Let's see how far we can get. Again, this sugya really goes, this is the last daf of this Perek. The sugya that we are discussing, Maisa Uman versus Maisa Hedyet, Mamish goes all the way until the end of the Perek, which is Yud Aleph and the bottom of Amud Aleph. But we are on Daf Yud, all the way on the top, referring back to the Mishnah, that when it comes to sewing, to fixing a garment, Hahedyet, only the unskilled person is allowed to sew a garment on Cholamoid Kedarkoi in one's usual manner, because by default, the usual manner of the Hedyet is not professional. It's not a Maaseh Uman. Hechidami Hedyet. And the Gemara begins to give examples. Wow, so there's noch a machloikes. Amri debei Rabbi Yana in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yana, they said, Kol she'eino yochel lohoitzim eloi machad bebas achas. An expert is someone that, if you can picture this, when they put the needle in the garment, the needle, the sewing needle has a certain length. So they're going to go back and forth, and they're going to have many loops on the needle even before they pull the needle out of the garment. When they pull the needle out, they will already have many stitches. That's called a professional sewer. With one length of the needle, you make many stitches. You know, today with the machines, it's mamish that way. It's one very near the other. People didn't have machines, but they were close to each other. If you don't know how to do that, if you're like a yeshiva bacher, like me, you put it in there, halavai, you get one stitch in. You know, every whole needle is for one stitch. That's okay. That's called a Maisa Hedyet. Another way to differentiate. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina Amar, Kol she'eino yochel lechaven imra b'chefes chalukei. When you are sewing a hem, will the hem be aligned? Will it be on the same level? If it's not going to be on the same level, it won't be even. That's the word. It won't be even. It's going to be a little bit higher there, a little bit higher there. That's called a hedyet, and such a person is allowed to sew on Cholamoid. Again, that's only if they need it for Yom Tov or for Cholamoid. If something is needed for after Yom Tov, then you may not sew it at all. Then the Mishnah says, when you do have the skilled tailor, the skilled sewer, SEW, so you can't say that the Uman is not allowed to do it, but he has to do it in an unskilled manner. And the Mishnah uses the words machliv, and interestingly, the Gemara understands machliv miloshan kelev, dog. So what does that mean? My machliv, weiter der Machlokes. Rabbi Yochanan says that mafsia Rava, which means wide steps. Rashi says, just like the teeth of a dog are wide, one is very widely separated from the other. So here also, place the stitches spread out. And by the way, that mamash fits with the first Bevei Rabbi Yanai to explain what's the Maisa Hedyet. You make one stitch, you leave a large gap until you make the next stitch. However, Bar Shmuel Amar, mafsia, a step. Rabba Bar Shmuel Amar, it means also from the lashon of a dog, but shinei kalbas are like the teeth of the dog, meaning it's not about one being separated from the other, but the teeth of the dog are not aligned. One is higher than the other. So you put a stitch on one level, the next stitch will be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. And I want to go back to the hem. Mamash fits. Just like before we had that the hem, if the hem is even, that's called an uman. If it's uneven, that's called hedyet. The stitches should be uneven. Mamash one here fits with the one above.
Rabbi, can you just clarify something about this sewing? This is a person that wants to sew for themselves rather than like sew as a business. I'm a professional. I'm not allowed to go sew for you, or can I? Like, what are we discussing here exactly?
Okay, so the key here, Danny, will be whether it's needed. It's not about whose garment it is. It's about, is this garment needed by you, by someone else for Yom Tov? Is it Soidach Yom Tov? And let's say, Danny, you're a tailor, and I come to you, but I tell you I need it for Yom Tov. I need it for Chol Hamoed for Yom Tov. That's the Ho'uman Machlib. Then you can do it for me as long as you do it in an unskilled manner. Mamish. Or for yourself.
But you're compensating him.
Doesn't matter. So we're going to learn today, we'll get there, about the concept of commerce. In other words, just to make it clear, if you remember from Hilchos Shabbos, let's take a step back. Chol Hamoed, we're going with the approach that the problem is, you begin with the premise that anything that's called a melacha for Shabbos Yom Tov is a melacha for Chol Hamoed unless you find a heter. Let me ask you, commerce, doing business, is it usher to do business on Shabbos and on Yom Tov? Be careful what you say. Well, it's certainly usher midrabanan, because we learned you might write a document, it might be going against divrei Kabbalah, meaning nach, right? Davar davar. Okay, very good. It's not a yisur doiraisa. And so it makes a big difference. I want to go back to your area. We're going to learn today. Let me tell you like this. We began in the Masechta by learning that davar ha'aved, there's a machlokes tanoim, but we paskin that when do we use the heter for davar ha'aved? Only if there's a loss of principle. If there's only a loss of potential profit, we don't apply the heter. We don't say that by commerce. Since commerce to begin with is less problematic, we use the heter of davar ha'aved regarding doing business. I want to answer your question, that if there is a profit that I will lose if I don't do the business, I'm not going to lose principle, I am allowed to do that on Chol Hamoed. Davar ha'aved is applied a lot more liberally if the problem to begin with is not biblical. Let's go back. We're going to learn this today. So today we're going to
get in a professional manner. That's the key. If you're paying somebody, they have to do it in an amateur way. But if you do it yourself, then you could do it as however you want, if you're not a professional.
Who said that? If you're not a professional, of course. The Mishnah says that. Exactly. Okay. A next example. All these examples are great because you get the right picture. It was the bed frames, the way we have bed frames. Today, we put the mattress on top of the bed frame. The way it worked then is that they had the frame of the beds, and they would have ropes, and they would weave it lengthwise and crosswise around the frame. That would create some sort of keli upon which they would put their straw mattress, whatever they consider to be the good mattress. Now, the question is, same thing. For Yom Tov, this is your bed. How much of the weaving of these ropes can you do, which is basically building? Now, building on Shabbos is awesome. Tikkun manen. So here you see, what may you do, what may you not do? So the Mishnah brought two opinions, the Tanakama, and we will discover the Tanakama is Rabbi Meir, but let's call it the Tanakama. The Tanakama says the words that mesargen asamitois, you can interlace, these are words, and Rabbi Yossi says, this was the end of the Mishnah on Daf Chesam days, mematchen, you can only tighten. You see, Rabbi Yossi is more machmer. You can't interlace. And these details are good because you have to extrapolate the details here for our life. But let's get into these details. Now, Kevin Baruch Hashem found that's a great picture. Okay, let's go. So first of all, my mesorgen, machloikes. My mesorgen, my mematchen. Again, there's weaving or interlacing, which is mesargin. Mematche means to tighten. So here we go. Kiyasa Abdimi, when Abdimi came to bubble right from Eretz Yisrael, Amadi says that over there in the Holy Land, and both of them were really quoting a prior machlokes between Chizkiah and Rabbi Yechanan. One of them, Chad Amar, says that mesargin or mesargin, interlacing means both shesiva erev, both putting the ropes lengthwise and putting then the ropes crosswise. That's the way they would make the base. Well, the picture of Kevin wasn't that perfect, but you get the idea. So, wow. Even that's allowed. No, it's the Tanakama that says you can do Mesargin. That's mamish, bona fide, putting this rope's length, putting the other ropes width. That's the best you can make it. And Mematrin, which is Rabbi Yossi, who says, no, that's too professional. You got to do it like Maisa Hediyat, Shesi Beloy Erev. Tightening means only putting it lengthwise, not crosswise. That's one way of understanding it. The other way of understanding is, V'chad Omar, no. Even the Tanakama, we'll see Rabbi Meir, who's more lenient, also doesn't allow you to do it the way it's normally done, or to use our words, cannot be done Maisa Uman. So how do you already take it a notch down? Oh, that's the right picture. Kevin, leave that up. Misargen means Shesi Beloy Erev. You only put it in one direction, and that is only according to the Tanakama. Mematchen, which is Rabbi Yossi, says you can't even put the ropes in one direction if they were not there prior to Yontif. Elama, what could you do? If the ropes were already there, but they're not stretched properly. So what happens if the ropes are not stretched? There's going to be as a smiley face to stay in your mattress. So what can you do is mematcha, you can tighten it.
It'll sag.
It will sag. That is the correct word. Shkoyach. I like smiley sounds freila. Okay, this will be a kasha on the opinion that holds that you cannot. No one holds you can place it both length and cross. He taught the following brayso. The shavin refers to our machlokes in the Mishnah between Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi, or we'll find out that Tanakama is Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi. She'ein mafshilin chaval lechatchila. You may not twist new ropes. Twisting new ropes is going even a step back. Forget about the fact that the ropes are not on the bed. The hastan shafilo the ropes. Can you twist the ropes? The further away you go from your function, from the use, the more problematic it is. Everyone agrees that you may not do. Now the Gemara has a great question. That Mesargin, which is the Tanakama, holds that you can do it both Shesiva Erev. Rabbi Yossi comes along and then he says, only Mamatchen, you can only tighten it. And that means one step less. Shesiva Lo Erev. So Vahainu, the Tani of the Chlif Barshol, that they both agree that you cannot twist the ropes lechatchila. However, Elo Lamando Masargin. If Mesargin means Shesiva Lo Erev. Mematchen means that it's even worse, that you cannot even do any of it. It's only if it's already on it, you can tighten it, which means l'kula alma, no one holds, you can put it both length and cross. So when the Braisa says everyone agrees what you can't do, why did they go 2 steps back? They should have gone only 1 step back. Gavaldik. They should have said that everyone agrees that Shesi ve'erev cannot be done. So for sure, is there even a need to say that you can't make the ropes, you can't twist the ropes? You understand? That's, there's a machlokes here, but over there means the closest possible. You don't go that far away. So first of all, that's a kasha. Now, it's a kasha. Just to know, we know kasha doesn't mean refuted. What will be the answer is taka kasha. But now the Gemara is going to completely knock it out of the park. We're gonna slug up the shita. Now, furthermore, how can you say that there is even an opinion that says that the word nisargen in the Mishnah means one way and not the other way? length and not cross. Shasi b'loy erev. Can be. How do I know it can be? Because in another context, and this is, Danny Fishman's, our Gabai's topic, tumantara. So there's a general rule. Something that's not considered a ready utensil is not keli, it's not even susceptible to becoming tummy. From what point is a bed considered a bed? And now it's mukhsha. Now, if the source of tumah touches it, will it become tummy? Says the Mishnah, only when you have 3 houses, just to explain houses, if Kevin will put the picture back up, it's simple. The way they would weave the ropes is they would first put all of the ropes in one direction. Let's go length. Then they would put it cross. Think about it. Every time you put a rope cross, once you put the second rope cross, what do you have in between? The square boxes. The square boxes is called bottom. If it doesn't even have 3 bottom, it's not called a bed. Okay. And what does the Mishnah say? Mishe Yisroig. It's befedish. The word weaving or lacing means length and cross. Ella kiyasa Ravin. And this is also common that the Rav Dimi came. Many sugyas are the way. Rav Dimi came and he brought a report. And later, Ravin, when he came from the Holy Land to Bavel, he brought a little bit of a different report. So kiyasa Ravin Amal, I guess. The Mesargan kola alma loy pligi. The word Mesargan in Mishnah always means shesiva erev. And therefore, my friends, when the Tanach says that you are allowed to do Mesargan, the Tanach is saying that the need of sleeping is that important that even if you need it for now, you don't have another bed, you can lace properly the ropes and you can have a good night's sleep. That's the Tanach. The Machlokes was only what does Rabbi Yossi mean when Rabbi Yossi uses the words mematchen, which means you can tighten it. That's the Machlokes. Mar Sovar, mematchen means that Rabbi Yossi is moeded that at least you can do shasi v'lo yerev. For sure you can tighten it, but you can even put it in one direction. Umar Savar, the other Amoida held, the only thing you can do is that if it was weakened, then you can tighten it, but you cannot put it in there, even if you're only putting it in one direction. And on that, now the Gemara says, it says in Abraisam, you are allowed to interlace the bed. Here's where we see that the Tanakam of our Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yossi Yomer, mematchen means mematchen only. Now hold on. Now what does that word mean? And the Gemara says, if you're going to say that the words mematchen means you can do it shesi v'lo yerev. Now there is a yeshoimrim that comes and argues and says, no. You cannot do it shesi v'lo. That makes sense. Now, if Rabbi Yossi meant that the only thing you can do is tighten it, so what would the yeshoimrim say? You can't even tighten it. The Gemara says it doesn't make sense. My friends, just to make it clear, it's not a malacha, right? Ariel, that's going to be going out. You spoke about commerce, but that's going to be a big thing. If to begin with, if something is there and you are tightening it, you are not doing a malacha. And this guy has no other bed. What is he going to do? It's a tzorech. It doesn't make sense. Not even that. Why would there be opinion that chamur? The Gemara says no. Could be. Says the Gemara because there is another way of sleeping relatively okay. In other words, if a person doesn't have proper ropes, what would they do? They would put garments. They would put bigadim on the ground, inside but under the frame, until it reaches the right height. Fine, and then you put the mattress on top of it. I remember my father always told me that when he was a kid in Brazil, one of the American presidents went there. And he was a big Americans are tall. The Brazilians are not that tall. And he went to a hotel in the north of Brazil where the beds, there wasn't a bed where he would fit. So they took, the phone, those big white pages, yellow pages. So they piled them up at the end of the bed and they added some shmatas. And that's for the American president. That's such a Brazilian thing to do. And that's it. And they made the bed longer. This is an example of Brazil. He always saw Brzil that way. That's how you make a bed. So yeah, even the efshel lenimliye b'monei, you can put inside the frame, put garments. Put garments, and that's it. Who needs ropes? Dasnishka ropes. So therefore, you can argue loy torchinon, and that's called toirech shaloi letzoirech. If it's not necessary, it's not, even if it's not a malacha, there could be. So therefore, Ravin's clarification stands. Taka, there is a machlokes b'shitas Rabbi Yossi. All of this is very important. Mamash, all of these things are brought on halacha l'maisa because the cases are different. But these nuances, the whole daf today, it's not that common. We get into these nuances. Is very good to know exactly from Chazal, from the Gemara, what may you not do on Yom Tov.
What if this type of low Torah gives you tsar?
Okay, so in other words, it's not comfortable. That's
right.
Yeah. Let me word it this way. Could you argue that it depends a little bit on the person? Like, for example, I have velus, let it bathe, but if a person is, istanis on the, could be. Let's go. Says the Mishnah. Now, the word ma'amidin, we have to get there, God willing. It's not clear. Ma'amidin either means to build. You can build a Tanach v'kirayim, or ma'amidin means that if you have all of the parts of the oven or of the stove, you can put them together. Now, like we mentioned, food, we don't care about that you're doing it in a skilled manner. Have the greatest chef, have leaders cook cholamayit, not a problem. You go back, oven, we're close. That's why we'll see that we're going to teach now. We'll just tweak it later. That you can even build the different types of ovens, always when you need it for Yom Tov. Millstones. Millstones is you don't bake the food in it, but you would grind the kernels to make it into flour. We're going back steps. So we'll see millstones. We're going to learn the Rishonim. You are allowed to assemble it. Can you go ahead and make the stones? We're not addressing that. Actually, the Gemara will address that. We'll see not in a skilled manner. But you have the difference. Millstones is further removed than the oven. The oven, you put the food in the oven. You're not putting the bread in the millstones. Okay. So I guess. So mamidim Tanach v'kirayim. You can even build it. Kama. And v'rechayim means, let's go, you can assemble millstones on Moed and Cholamoyed. Rabbi Yehuda oimer, ein mechavshin eser rechayim batchila. The word mechavshin means to gouge. Thank you. What does gouging mean? Let me say it by heart. Gouging means that you have two stones, a millstone. So there's two things. You got to get the kernels in there, in between them. What would you do? They would make a hole in the center of the top stone, through which they would pour the kernels. Then it would land in between the stones, and one stone is turning. Then you have to have in the lower stone, you have to have crevices. You have to gouge it. You have to cut it out so it's not flat. So now that the kernels are in between the two stones and it's very uneven, that is what crushes it. So there is stones that were gouged in the past, and now the gouging has to be redone, versus lachatchila, they were never gouged. That's more of a malacha. So Rabbi says you can't lachatchila gouge it. Now, one second. Very good. So now asks the Gemara, let's go. I want to go. What's mechavshin? What's gouging? Rabbi Yehuda says, menaker echayim, cutting grooves into the lower stone, what we just mentioned. That's the meaning of mechavshin. Rabbi Yechiel says, no, that mechavshin means bas ena, means making the hole in the middle of the top stone through which you put the kernels. For the Gemara, this kasha will be against Rabbi Yechiel. Says in a brayso, mamidim Tanach v'kirayim b'moed. You can again either assemble them or even build them, but ubavad. Here you have a shita that says you can do it, but you got to do it with a shinui. You can't fully do it because then you're not doing it in a way that's called Maisa Uman. You see, this is not food. This is one step further away. That's all these. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. The Chachamim hold that it's not mamish food, but it's only one step away from food. Let's word it that way. Af Yigmar. Now Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Mishmai. Who's Mishmai? Rabbi Eliezer. That even though Rabbi Eliezer is a little bit more machmer, right? He says you can't mamish finish it. Nevertheless, ma'amidim esachadosha. You can set up new millstones. You're not building it. You're only setting it up. And umachafshin, and you can gouge the old one. You can re-gouge the old one. V'yeshoimrim. That Rabbi Yehuda, continuing B'shitas Rabbi Eliezer, holds the opposite. that you cannot gouge, not even an old one. End of quote. I'm a chafshin kolik. Now, Chevre, look at this. If you're going to say the word mechafshin means menakere chaya, makes sense. You have grooves, like you said, David, sharp with the knife. The knife was sharp. After a while, the grooves become dulled. So you have to, mamash, it's the same thing. You have to redo it. It makes sense why there might be a need. So there's machlokes. What does Rabbi Eliezer hold? Could you do it? Can you not do it? However, if the word mechafshin is not in reference to the groups, it's in reference to the hole on the top. Let me ask you, how will the hole get old and therefore needs to be fixed? Doesn't make sense. The hole is the same hole. A knife gets dull, but if it's referring to the hole on the top millstone, it can be 1,000 years old. Usage doesn't make it dysfunctional. There's what fixing is needed there. It's there. So the Gemara says, no. Maybe that you want to grind more grains at a time, and you want to make the hole a little bit wider. Could be. It's not that age made it dull. No, but you decided now you want to have a bigger hole. You want to make it wide, abyssal. You have a begun to mill, you want to do it quicker. Or the guy that's pushing the mill is not your friend, you want him to schwitz more. You want to put more corn, I don't know, doesn't matter. Yeah, okay. The first white line in the bottom. He heard a person to come and knock at that he was gouging, right? He was cutting grooves into the lower millstone. And he clearly held that may never be done. And therefore he says, Amaru, man hai. People have the chutzpah, it's noisy. So God forbid, something wrong. At least have the decency, don't do it barabim. And he said strongly that itachel gufe, the kamachel choylo demoid, may the body of the person who's making cholamoid mundane, may his body become mundane. Okay, he said something not positive. Why did he make that statement? Because obviously he held like the Yesh Oimrim, because if he would not have felt like the Yesh Oimrim, no, it's if we would be allowed to gouge a old one, then he wouldn't be choyesh just because he heard the noise, he's doing a new one. But since he followed the Yesh Oimrim that holds that you may never do it, that's why when he heard someone doing it, he said words that were not positive regarding that person. Now, let's move. Yeah.
Eliezer, who says that you can't complete it, is he concerned with being able to use it?
No, you can use it even when we're talking the Tanach B'Kirayim. Even if it's you can use it. Fakert.
Oh, even if it's incomplete.
For sure. If you can't use it, then what's the point?
Right.
It's not complete. In other words, he holds that even though it's food related, but you can't do it in a professional manner. So how do you do it? Like we learn stitches. Make the oven, but it's not complete. So after Yom Tov, you're gonna have to finalize. Many times it's about polishing the outer, making a finish, stuff like that. Okay. Rab Chama expounded. Wow. That you are allowed to make a hole. You are allowed to make a hole. Now, obviously, he must have learned the Mishnah, that the Mishnah was only addressing the grooves. It must be that way. And therefore, he didn't understand that there are Tanoim, that he cannot argue with Tanoim, that were addressing making the hole. So he held that you could do that. Okay. No, 1 second. Noikrin, fakir. No. Noikrin, menaker. No. He held you, fakir. Minakotza lakotza. So Rafuna held that no one holds you can ever make grooves, even if it's a used one. He held that our discussion was only about making the hole. That none of the Tanoim were discussing making grooves. Grooves you can make. And what will be, there's a logic to that. I'll tell you the logic. That the hole that you make, taken, the hole that you make stays the way it is. The grooves constantly, like a knife, it's not like a permanent thing. You use it, it gets dulled, you got to do it again. So maybe he viewed that making grooves, Bechlal, is not called the Maisa Uman. Or something like that. So that's the Gemara's contrast. Now, Mishum Rabbi Meir Amar, other details, a lot of details. Afilu sus sharech of olive, or v'chamor sheroichav olav. And these animals have hooves. And if you would understand animals, you would know that every now and then you have to trim the hooves. And if you don't trim the hooves, the animals are not comfortable when they walk. So there's a double issue. Trimming the hooves, Aleph, takes away the tzad of the animals. Beis, it helps you, because if you want to go from point A to point B, if the sus that you are on is uncomfortable, you're not going to get that far. So these are all atadim. He held that you are allowed, as long as you're using that animal, that mutter, little tziparnayim. Like we mentioned, like Rashi writes in the bottom, or what we call Rashi, the both reasons. There's that tsar, balachayim issue, and there's also, for you benefit because the animal will take you further. Daf Yud Amud Beis. However,
even if you're not traveling with the horse and the horse
only if you're traveling on the horse, Kevin. That was the whole point.
But if the horse keeps raising its leg, means it's in pain. It keeps lifting up the hoof.
That's not being addressed over here, Kevin. I don't know. No, clearly from our Gemara, see, there's different levels of pain. This type of pain, where it's not trimmed, the Gemara doesn't say that it's standing up in pain, is not enough for you to be allowed to do it. You'll read the next line. From all this, you put the picture together. The top line on Yud Amud Beis. They used to have mills. Who turns this top stone? So it was common that they would have a chamor. So the chamra derechayim, it's called the mill donkey. Now, how much does it walk? Not that much. So even if it's in pain, so again, Kevin, I don't know what level of pain, but the normal pain. And therefore, it's not going to walk that much. That doesn't justify for you to trim it on Chol HaMoed, because you don't need for it to walk around that much. Don't forget that when you grind, you can only grind 4 Yom Tov. How much flour is that? A couple of turns. For that, it's okay. Clear, Kevin. That clarifies. Look inside the top of Rashi. They had a chamoir that would turn the stone. You can't cut its fingernails or its hooves, whatever you call it. Why? Because the limatzi lemitchem moed elo. Yeah, you're allowed to mill only a little bit. For that little bit, Zakt Rashi hilkach techina muetes yachal litchem bechamoed. It won't. The fact that it has longer hooves won't diminish, won't stop it from being used for that function. Only the moed. Great.
Rashi's saying that the concern is that if you're cleaning this chamra, that you're really doing it for after Yom Tov? Is that what he's saying?
No, it means that the only reason why you would need the chamra to walk a lot, which would then make it painful, is only if you're grinding flour for after Yom Tov. Every case is a case. If you're leaders and you have a big simcha coming up and you have to have a lot of bread that you have to make, maybe you'll be allowed 100%. No, that's important. These Gemaras are very important. It's not that common that you have these nuances in the Gemara to know how to apply it, where to apply it. Weiter. Rav Yehuda, however, Rav Yehuda disagrees. And he holds, Shari lemishkal turfe lechamra derechaya. First of all, you are allowed to cut the nails. Now, maybe Kavan, maybe it's because there's tzad. Maybe it's because of tzad. Number 2, another din. Many hatadim of Rav, the Amoid of Rav Yehuda. Ula oik merecha, you are allowed to set up mills. Not only that, he holds more. You can even make it from scratch. Not only that, ulemivna amas rechaya. You can build it around mills. They would have a frame. They would have like a wooden barrel enclosure. That would it's like professional. Now your mills are in a proper casing. You can build that casing. Ulemivna uria. You can build a barn similarly. This barn is not related to the mill. You have a barn. Animals can get lost. Was many hetadim of Rav Yehuda regarding working on Chol HaMoed. Now, let's go with Rav Shara. Lisaruka Susyam, they would comb the hair of a horse, and combing the hair of a horse with those metal combs is Zikr Asar and Shabbos and Yom Tov because you might rip out goizes, you might rip out the hair. You can do it on Chol HaMoed. Why can you do it on Chol HaMoed? What's Soidech HaMoed? It's like washing your car. When you're walking on, you'll get from A to B. But here you'll have a brand new Honda Pilot. It's a whole different chashivos. You understand? You're going on a horse that's ois gekent. And that you can do it on Chol HaMoed. Lemivnei akarafita. You are allowed to build a manger. Let's see Danny's face. A manger is these long wooden boxes in which animals would be given food. A trough. Again, the chiddush is we're going That's called tzorech hamoed. The animal needs to eat. What you think the animal can eat off the ground, it could. But this is, you're more balabatish. Even your animal has a box. Ula mivneit stabna, you can build these benches. Building a bench. Okay, there won't be a bench. No. It's even things that are not like, how do you define tzorech? That's the secret here. That's called a need. You're building benches when people need it. You can buy benches. There we go. By a bench, you can even say, many Rishonim say it's a tzorech harabim, because it's not only for you. Anything that's for greater amount of people becomes more permissible. And now let's begin with 8 statements of Rava. Number 1, Rava shara lemishkal dama lebehema b'chayla demoed. Rava allows for you to let blood of an animal. That was a typical therapeutic. And again, letting blood based on Shabbos is mamash asa doiraisa. Correct? Remember that whole topic? And over here, you are allowed to do it. You're allowed to do it. Let's go with the animal is in danger. The animal is sick. And that's the real davar ha'aved, because if the animal dies, you'll lose your principle. You can do it. Okay. I found a proof to you, Rava. It says in the Braisa, makiz in dam la behema, and ve'ein moinin refuah la behema b'choyle shel moed, right? You don't prevent any medicine to be given. Now, Tosfos here makes a very important point. If we're speaking about a refuah that is only prohibited because on Shabbos and on Yom Tov, shchika samamonim, there's a rabbinic prohibition, then there's no need for Rava, because there is never a prohibition to give a medicine to animals on Shabbos. But if the medicine involves direct melacha, like removing blood, that is what we're discussing. And again, since it's a davar ha'aved, we are allowed to do it. Rule number 2, Rava says further, Rava shara lekaskuse kirme. Rava allows for people to press garments on Chol HaMoed. Maitama, because he says that Maisa had you to. In other words, we'll learn laundering clothing is very problematic. There are some metadim. Pressing garments is lesser, but still problematic. Once it's not mamash and isur, so now we're going to use this general heter that it's called the masa hedyet. The type of press that he is allowing for us to use, they would probably put a stone on the garment. And like this, it would be less creased. It's a good yeshiva.
Nowadays, you just put the laundry in the washing machine. You don't use.
So we'll get into laundering later. But okay, here he is allowing for people to press it with this kirme. Next, kiture bire, that pleating a sleeve. Again, this is making the sleeve fancier. That's already usher. In contrast to the type of pressing that Rava was referring to, there's a line where we say that even when it's tzorech hamoed, it's not food. If it's professional, you can't do it. So pleating a sleeve, my tamas uman. The number 3, Amar Rava, man the mesakel ara, a person who is shoveling away mounds of earth or taking away stones or piles that are on your land. Are you allowed or not allowed to do it on Chol HaMoed? So here we begin. If the reason why you're doing it is because you want to make a flattened area in your field to use it as a threshing floor is good, because threshing is one of the steps that you need to do to get flour, ultimately to get food, then you are allowed to do it. But if the only purpose for you clearing out that area is you want to improve the land for later cultivation, you're not going to cultivate it on Chol HaMoed, but you're doing it for cultivation, then it's asur. So therefore, this is an activity that your intention will determine whether mutar or asur. And the Gemara asks a very interesting question, Heichi Dami. Now, let's go with Heichi Dami, that there are times, because of Maras Ayin, that we have to make sure that everyone knows what your intention is. So Heichi Dami means, how can you do it in a way where it's known that I'm doing it for a threshing floor, meaning that if it's not known, I can't say, I know. Has to be done in a way that it's clear that it's for the threshing. And the Gemara says like this, mulya b'mulya or natza b'natza, a mound on a mound, a hole in a hole, which means it's very simple. You have a mound, and if you want to cultivate the land, you know what you need? You need to have the entire land leveled. If you have a mound and you're diminishing the mound, you're taking the earth off, but you're not making it flat. You're putting the earth that you're taking from the top right around it. So you are making the mound a little bit lower, but larger. And on the top of the mound, it's flat. Or if you have a hole, So you're not fully filling up the hole, but you're broadening the hole. You're broadening the hole by making the hole less deep and wider, but it's still a hole. It's clear that you're not doing this to cultivate the land. Everyone sees that you're just trying to find a little bit of a larger area within your field, where in that area, it's flat for you to thresh. Then it's okay. Adata de beidari. But shakal mulya v'shada benatza, if you take a mound and you throw it into the hole, if you fully flatten the area, then everyone can see that adata da'ara, and that's going to be prohibited. The number 4, ve'amarava, hayman de zachin ziche, a person who was clearing debris. We're speaking about he's clearing off his field, twigs, ichveis, all different types of materials that could be used for fuel. Now again, are you doing it for the fuel, or are you doing it to clear the land for cultivation? So adata the tzive, if you need wood, you need fuel, is it good? Mutter. Adata the if you're doing it because you want to clear the land for cultivation after Yom Tov Asa. And again, hechidami means how would we make it apparent, which here it's important, for what you're gathering all of this, all of these ZKs. So if shakal rav leviv shakal zutrei, if I see that you're only picking up the larger pieces, you're leaving the smaller pieces, clearly you need it for fuel. Because if you want to cultivate the land, you want to clear everything off. But since you're leaving and you're only taking the bigger ones, which is a lot better to have a bigger log than a smaller log, then adata de tzive is good. But if the shakal rav leviv zutrei, if you're picking up everything, so it's apparent that adata de aron, that's going to be prohibited. Then number 5, let's move. For amarava. If you have a gate that stops water from going into your land, and you opened up the gate, which is, here in the Sephardic shul, there's many openings that if you open that up, the rain comes in. Even when you close it, the rain comes in. But so a person did an activity for the water to come in. Again, normally you water the field. That's the beginning of the Perek. The Perek is called Mashkin Beis HaShalchan. Watering could be problematic. That's the whole beginning. Now, first of all, you're not watering, you're just opening up the gate, but still, what is your intent? So says the Gemara, if adata de kavre, if your intention is for the fish, well, how the fish? If you have chevra, a body of water in which there's fish, and if you have that water diverted in your field in a way where the water will seep away, then all the fish will just amachai. The best way to trap fish, then the fishalach will just, they'll be on your land. If it's for fish trapping, then it's mutter. You're going to get food. If adata da'ara, if you want the water to enter your land because you want to water the land, then it's asad. Now, by the way, we're not saying that watering is always asad. Again, Perek is mashkin beis hashalchan. We're speaking about if it's a type of land that you may not water on cholamoid. Hey chidami, how do you make that demonstrable? So if pasach terei bave, if you have 2 gates, 2 doors, 2 open ways that you can open and close with the door. One is on top of the field, one is in the lower part of the field, and you open both of them, right? That means you want the water to go in and you want the water to go out. Why? Because you want to have the fish. To catch the fish, you want the water to pass over your field, but you want the water to leave for the fish to remain. Then adata the kavre, and then you're allowed to do it. But if you only opened one gate and you left the other gate closed, which means you want to keep the water on your land. You want to keep the water on your land. That means that you want to cultivate your land, and that's adata the and it's prohibited. The number 6, ve'amarava, hayman the fashach tikla. You are removing branches from a palm tree. Again, why are you doing it? Either you need fuel or you want to improve the tree. So if adata dechevasa, you're gathering the branches to feed your animals, not fuel, you would use these branches that will be animal food, then you can, of course, shari. If adata the dikla, if you're doing this to improve the tree, awesome. Hey chidami, how can we know why are you doing it? So if shakal kulim echad gisa, if you are removing the branches only from one side, it doesn't improve the tree, but you get the food that you need. Adata dechevasa. If you are removing the branches from both sides, the number 7, the amarava, hane tamre tuch lani, unripe dates. And let's go with the approach that we are discussing, removing them on chalamoyet, and then cutting them into 2. So migzerino, cutting them off the tree, and then cutting them into 2 pieces, which means clearly you're taking them off the tree to eat them, l'tsoyre chamoyed, or for Yom Tiv, then it's allowed. But if you are pressing them, people would press fruits in order to preserve them, because if it's moist, it gets wormy. You press them out. Press, if you're taking it off the tree and that means you're doing it for later. Then it's going to be aser. Push it. Rav Papa says no. He argues with that. And that Ariel, he will begin with commerce. That kiv and you took them off the tree. You don't need it for the moed. But you want to do commerce with it. Kiv and the masli, if you won't press it, it's going to get wormy. So therefore, this is part of business activities. And if you won't take it off the tree, then you won't begin your business dealings on Chol HaMoed. You won't lose anything. You won't lose principle. That's very important, this line. But business, Davar Ha'aved, doesn't have to be losing principle. Likula Alma, Davar Ha'aved means even losing profits. Then you are allowed to work, and therefore it's permitted. You're taking it off the tree, and you're going to press it, and you're going to sell it. So what? So what? So it's not L'tzoydech HaMoed. It's commerce. Doesn't matter. If you'll do it now, you're going to make more money, or you think you'll make more money. That is a heter for you to do it. No, number 8. Any amount of merchandising, buying or selling, again, not for the needs of Yantiv. You're buying, you're selling, is going to be prohibited. So here we go. Rava, we'll see that we argue with that. The Rava begins, why is it awesome? Because like we learned in the last few sugyas, you can't do activities that will contradict the v'samachta b'chagecha. And Rava is very practical. When people do business, of course, people do it with the intent of making money. But there are many times that after everyone had that experience, you sold, you bought, I didn't sell, you should have charged more money. Or I overpaid, and it brings distress. So since it's not for Yantiv, and there's always the possibility that you'll have tsar, Rava says that any amount is awesome. However, Amar Rabbi Yosi bar Oven, bedavar ha'aved muter. So you have to know how to balance it. So if the same business will be available after Chol HaMoed, that is where we accept Rava's concept. You might be very happy from your business, but it might put you into tsar. But if it's an opportunity that you will not have next week, the upside is that only now do I stand a chance to make profits. Again, even though we had a machlokes, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda, there was a machlokes. And the Mishnah actually sided with the opinion that holds that Davar Ha'aved only means principal loss. We don't apply that to business. Profit loss is called Davar Ha'aved. It's a big heter. And therefore you are allowed to do it. Let's go weiter. Ravina, Havo, Iska, he had a certain business. The Hava Mizdabin, that if he would have sold it, again on Chol HaMoed, he stood to earn Shita Alfei by 6,000 zuz, or whether that's the profit or whether that was the number. However, even though we learned, my friends, that when you feel that you won't get the opportunity to do it later, you can do it on Yom Tov. So either he went beyond the letter of the law, or the story was he knew that he can sell it next week. One of the two, whichever one. No, and by the way, if you
Yom Tov or Chol HaMoed, Rabbi, you can sell it on Chol HaMoed, not Yom Tov.
Thank you. We're only speaking about Chol HaMoed. So whichever way it was, he was rewarded. He waited. So shehoya lizabune, he waited to sell it until basar choilo de mo'ada, and after Chol HaMoed came, means not only after Chol HaMoed, it means after Chol HaMoed and after the final days of Yom Tov. And you know what happened? When he sold it then, v'zavnei b'treiser alfei, he sold it for double the amount, or he profited double the amount. Okay. Ravina, have a masik zuzei. Ravina had money owed to him by the residents that lived b'bnei Akra dishan vasa, people who lived on the banks of the river Shavnasa. People owed him money. Now today there's something called the collection agency, which did not exist then. And one of the biggest challenges you had, both for the government collecting taxes or someone owed you money, you couldn't find them. The beauty of a Jew is everyone is home for Yom Tov. So the best time to collect is going on Chol HaMoed. So he asked the Shaila. So he went in front of Rav Ashi and he asked them, can I go and ask for payment? Now, the issue, guys, we're not speaking about tchumen here. We're speaking about commerce. In other words, can I go? Or, it's not, you can't say tzorech moed if you can get it after Yom Tov. If you need the money now, there wouldn't be a shayla. He didn't need the money right away. Nevertheless, Amalei Rav Ashi tells him, now you know as much as you could that they are home because it's Yom Tov. And they might not be there after Yom Tov. So this falls into the category Kiperakematyo. This is like doing any other business where we say that ha'avei, a business that you might lose, it's similar to Dame, and therefore the last line, Hipaskin Lakula, you are allowed to travel and to make your collection. Tanya Nami Avodah Zarah Ki Hai Gavno. What did we learn regarding the laws of Avodah Zarah? So Nachama we have again the second time. The beginning of the Masechta Avodah Zarah begins with the rule that 3 days, 3 days before a holiday, that's called a pagan holiday. And again, Tosfos and note Christmas is a pagan holiday, Avodah Zarah holiday. Elama, because of the people in Western Europe not being frum, it only became like a cultural holiday. We are more lenient. But the concept is when there's a real pagan holiday, or if you're interacting with a real fruma Christian, and it goes to, of course, to the religious people in the East, then you're not allowed to do many business activities with them because they're going to be very glad that they made business, and this might lead them to go and thank God. And we're going to see that there are certain heterim by a davar ha'aved. What's the head? So let's go. So it says, first, this is not before the Yom Tov. This is Bechlal. You can go to a fair. This is not a religious fair. This is a commercial fair, but it's being run. The vendors are oivdei avodah zarah. That's not a problem. If it's not right before the Yom Tov, and you can buy from them beheiman, avodim, shvachis, batim, sadas ukuramim. So we're not speaking about the actual doing business with them, which may not be done around their holiday time, but it could be done in all other times of the year. Here we're speaking about another topic, and that is, how are you allowed to record the sale through their judicial system? Because you're giving covet to their judges, to their laws. You are allowed to do it. And you are allowed to record these transactions in their courts, because, my friends, recording it in a Jewish court, they won't honor. And if you won't record it, and now again, the problem of recording it in their court is you're giving kibbutz to their judges. See, all the Jews are coming here and they recognize the legitimacy of our court. You're allowed to do it because there's no alternative. If you won't record it in their courts, then they're going to deny they owe money. Because so this concept of davar ha'aved, which many times is used to be mativ, doing business, and chalamayid is similarly used in giving a certain amount of legitimacy to courts, even when they are run by idol worshippers. Weiter. Rav allowed Shara to Chia Barashi, lemigdal oyhare b'choylei demoid. He was allowed to him to make fish traps. Why? Again, we're going steps back. It's like a mill. We're going steps back from food. It's food related, but it's not direct. Why? That was not a problem, because all of these fish traps were considered Maisa Hedyet. You didn't need to make something very professional. However, Avol Islay, but bird nets, Asur. And my Tama, Maisa Umenu. And by the way, that's where the Nemucha Yosef, we quoted in the intro, speaks out this Nakuda. If it's direct food related, we don't care Maisa Umenu. And again, when it comes to building ovens, which is closer to the food than making the nets to trap the birds, there we'll see right now, we'll clarify, can you even build it or can you only assemble it? Rav Huna Shara La'ame Tanura. Rav Yehuda allowed. Ami was the name of the Yid. His profession was making tanurim. So they called him the Ami, the oven maker. Lemigdal Tanure. He can build new ovens. And guys, it's amazing. He's building new ovens on Cholamoid. This is business. This is prakamatya. Build new ones. Ulerav Bar Isvi, he allowed him lemigdal mehoylasa, to make seeds, even though
Rabbi Yehuda was pretty lenient on this stuff.
Clear. And that's what we had on top of Ahmed Base, 100%.
Unlike Rav Huna.
Very good. Any v'hatana Rav Bar Shmuel. Rav Shmuel had a brayso that he taught Vishavin she'ein goydlan tana lechatchila, that when he learned our Mishnah, not the way we touched our Mishnah, that our Mishnah allows the building of Tanah and Kedayim. No, you can only assemble it. But mamish, to build it, lachatchila, you're not allowed to do that. So Rav Yehuda allowed the Ami to build. So the Gemara says like this: Loikash, kami ma'isachama, kami ma'isachsham. This is the key. B'moisach chama. Now, guys, by the way, Chol HaMoed, we know, is not b'moisach chama, not b'moisach shama. Chol HaMoed is Pesach or Sukkos. But the weather, it's amazing. The temperature, since it's in the middle of the seasons, right, spring and fall, sometimes Pesach feels zumerdik. Sometimes, that's what it means. Sometimes Pesach feels, is it rainy or not? L'may nafka. When you build an oven, those ovens, if it would rain, it would never be finished to be ready to be used on Yom Tov. If it was not a rainy season, if it was a nicer season for Chol HaMoed, it makes sense. Then will every oven that you're making be used on Chol HaMoed? I don't know. But at least I'm making something that potentially could be used on Yom Tov. If it could be used on Yom Tov because it's weather permitting, again, today it's not shaykh, today you have factories, even if it's raining, then they built them outdoors. Now, he didn't build one for his kitchen. He was building it as a business. So there's another nuance now that when you're building it as a business, as long as your final product that you are making on Chol HaMoed has in potential some yid buying it on Chol HaMoed and using it for Yom Tiv, you're good. If you know because of the rain, verstehst, that none of it will be ready on Chol HaMoed, then you're not allowed to do it.
This doesn't have the Maras Ayin.
This is not Marasayin.
It's about his business.
Yeah. It's about making. So there's a difference between merchandising, which were much more lenient, like I mentioned, because merchandising, the problem of buying and selling, merchandising means I'm buying a stock, I'm selling a stock, is much less problem than building. It's good, because building, you're violating an Isser D'Oraisa, you have to find a greater head. We have a few more minutes. I have to chaparayim because tomorrow's daf is very big. Just at least to begin the Mishnah. Guys, until the end of the Amid, it's beautiful. You get more and more details. Let's begin the Mishnah. Says the Mishnah. Oisin makol agag. Ulamid passes. As we know, that if you have a roof upon which people can walk, or if you have some sort of porch upon which people can walk, and there's a danger to pasuk and chumash, you're mechuyev, my friends, to make a railing, right, the fence. You are allowed to build it, but only ma'aseh hedyot. Again, the Mishnah is not defining what would that look like, but it makes a lot of sense. You're building is usher. Okay, it's not food related. Everything fits in this thing. If you do it ma'aseh hedyot, no one is going to fall off the railing. You solve the issue, so don't do it in a professional manner. How a shafin as hasdakin, if you have cracks, now whether the cracks are cracks on the roof, whether according to somebody showing them these are cracks in the ovens, you are allowed to smear plaster. And you are allowed to flatten the plaster using a more unskilled manner, using your hand, using your foot. But you may not use, they had these professional blocks that they would use to properly smooth out the plaster. That's something that you may not use. Again, we're speaking about activities that you can solve the issue. There's a moed need. You solve the need, but don't do it. It's not that food related, and therefore you cannot do it in a professional. We'll stop here in the middle of the Mishnah. That's perfectly fine. Okay, to be continued. We're going to begin with safety. The next line of the Mishnah is safety. Safety is more lenient. Safety issue. And you can do it even ma'aseh to be continued.
Rabbi.
Thank you.
Yeah, ma'aseh hedyot is lav dafka safe.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, Tzemach is making a very good point. Correct. If ma'aseh hedyot is not safe, then don't do that. Speaking about, like we learned sewing today, you can get a professional tzemach that does the job, but he doesn't finish it. People look at it, they see it's an unfinished fence. We'll repeat this tomorrow. Good. This is like